to level and remove the two panels of the device. Also remove safety inside red light and create a small incision between the plastic and screen and insert a couple of millimeters and then backwards. Create a light gap which is now being used to a. Starting topping there, with insert a couple of millimeters which are along the edge to separate the screen from the Take the red light out to continue around the top edge and the left hand of the phone. Don't worry about the side edge, you can lift it or wiggle it out to release the screen. Now into the device, press the handle and as you can remove the screen fold out shield with the plastic cover. Remove the shield with the tweezers and use the plastic footer. Disconnect the plastic here so you can isolate carbon on the device. Move to the shield here, remove the 5 screws. Once the screws are removed, remove the shield and use the plastic footer again. Remove the connector to the front sensitivity speaker, followed by the two display connectors, one for the touch and the other for the LCD. Down the free screen with the chassis, take advantage of the engine removes as possible and move on to the chassis before you can screen. The tool now allows you to remove the fine tweezers and remove as much of it as possible. Before taking the master level, clean the engine chassis. Using the attached stickers, take the album, and to control the design. It's important to get the chassis as possible at this point. Phase 2 is only the use of the seal on the chassis. Most screens will remove seal now in this section, so stick that in place and line the end of it. Before securing down the plastic strip. Now remove the first layer of the film. So the feels active quality is marked on the screen with a blue seal and the exact design go. Now the seal applied, remove the ear speaker from the screen and you can transfer it into a new display. There's one driving screw in the top left corner of this ear speaker, remove that and remove the 3 cross screws in each corner of the ear speaker. Also remove the tweezers and unfold the ear speaker from the flex cable. Now take tweezers again and lift the small bracket. And then using a hairdryer, you can move the area around the proximity sensor, microphone and the light sensor to soften the adhesive underneath so that you can tweezers underneath and lift up the sensors without damaging them. It's really important to careful doing this because this flex cable is damaged, it will render face ID obsolete. Now that the flex cable is removed into a new display, remove any feels on the back of the screen and place down the flex cable the same way you remove it. Once the flex is lined up, you must take your proximity sensor and line that in place. Sometimes you might need the tweezers to be able to nudge or the sensor and that way the microphone should be secure. Reinsert the small bracket, this will be tricky, we'll talk about it in one. And then follow the ear speaker. Align the screw holes, then secure down the 3 cross screws and a single driving screw into the left. It does secure now, we can move on to transfer the data using the program. This is an optional step in the programming tool, but it is essential that the way the screen works. The basic model, you take the old screen, read the data stored in the stream here, remove it, attach the new screen, and then write the data. So this is the data stored clipboard, transferring the data from your screen to the new. Now remove that out of the way. Now we get the new screen, we can operate the flex cables one by one. Once they're lined up, just add a little bit of pressure to get it sort of taking place. You might get a little bit of first time do this, so be patient. Once that's secured, remember to put the shield on the battery and see the time to test the new display works. Okay, we're going on to this. As long as it connects to the properly, make sure the making sure that it doesn't drop the slider when pressing power. Press the touch all over, which means it can seal the so start by lining up the shield at the top and rescrewing 5 drive screws. I'm thinking that all these screws are the same size, so it doesn't matter if you more solid. As long as there's a screw out, the logical, you want to drain harm in different location. Now that's secure. It's a little bit easier to put the bracket to the battery back on. We can lift the cables to the screen, resecure the bottom 2 screws first, and then we'll peel back the screen cable a little bit so we can get the top screw. One of the things I'm noticing is this quite common is this bracket is so tight, you just have to put that make sure it's sat in the little cache. So if you don't do that, then the screen wants it flush and also the screen back in the display. As you peel back the peel for the just make sure it's seal. And I'll sort of now so I can get the rest of the on this side. Then to make sure the screen goes back perfectly in place, we're going to get the top of the screen first, make sure it's in the top, nice and flush and then pressure in that corner there, pull back, spin it around, pressure there, and get the screen on the bottom, make sure it's nice and flush, see what corner screen in there. I think it's got a little dip in the top. If that happens, you can take it regular again, just go a little nudge to make sure it's perfect. Send it back again, last screw up, make sure you resecure the 2 pencil screws into the bottom. If you want to change the screwdriver, if you want to plug the device and take the pencil screwdriver and remove the 2 screws at the bottom of the phone, either side of the line cutter. Please notice the magnetic screwdriver to the next, with a single-sided blade, I'm going to create a incision into the frame at the very edge of the screen, but inside the frame of the bump. This one's a bit. You can see where it's once you insert it into the slot, just pop it over that. Without using any heat or anything to itself, it will come quite easily. Quite like that. Just enough so you can make a bigger gap in the bottom of the screen, large enough to get the plastic top into, once you insert it into the corner, and then we can bring it down and along this first edge. Bring it all the way along the right hand edge first of all, bring it back down itself, along the bottom, and then along this left hand edge of the screen, and just keep bringing it around like that, until the bottom of the screen is attached like that. Leave the top, don't worry about that, you're going to go a little from the bottom, pull this side like that, until it's snapped on the top, and then bottom of the screen just like that. This is like the battery flexible, so the screen is open, but I don't think you'll have too much difficulty removing that screen if you follow the instructions. To keep the screen from falling over, use a weighted object hammer, building the screen edge to make 2 screws work inside the phone. To detach the screw from the phone, first of all we need to disconnect power, and that's coming from the battery, so we remove the 3 screws that are hiding underneath the screen cable, so it's like L-shaped bracket, remove the 3 driving screws that hold it down, store the safety installation later, and take the tweezers, lift up that L-shaped bracket, pull it out of the way, and then use a plastic pine tool to disconnect this flex cable here, which is for the battery, which is disconnected and out of the way. Moving along now, we can remove this screw, and the rest of the screws, this sort of rectangular shaped shield will hold down the connectors for the screen, and then use the tweezers to the shield again, and the same with the battery, except we're going to use it to lift out this connector here, and finally this connector just here. With those all connected, we can now lift up the screen and put it to one side. We'll carry on working on the frame while we open, and what we find is that this blue line from the previous just demonstrates the seal, and we need to get that out of the way, we're going to replace that seal. So just get some tweezers, pick it up, and pull it off like that, do that out of the way, and then just check all the way around the edges to make sure it's all been removed, there's more to seal. Get that out of the way, and I think that's all that needs to be removed. On the edges is an accumulated glue that gets into the screen and the frame of the phone. To remove that, we're going to add a little bit of isopropyl alcohol in one of these little squeeze holes, just leave it down the edge, leave it on these little 4 separations. Not too much of the same thing as well, we're just going to clean up all the different like that. Get the screw in there, not these edges, just right away. When you get to the top, should be aware, obviously, there's a camera here, so you don't go crazy. Brushing that with dirty brush everywhere. Just use one side for that, one direction, just so that avoid causing damage to the camera or the face camera. That's clean up, and I'll put that one side properly, also means it's here. And what we need to do, to make sure the face ID works after repair, we need to remove this cable flex and ear speaker from this screen onto the new one. So to do that, we'll have to remove the single drive screw from here, and then the rest of them are the cross screws, so go ahead and remove all those. We can unfold this ear speaker like that, and then go from here. On the original screen, there'll be a small little shield there. You just take the tweezers, if you the shield there, pick it up with the tweezers like that, and then it'll be all bolts like this. But this screen is actually replaceable, which means that somebody has to put that little shield back. I'll try to find one, replace it, but they are in short supply, we find a lot. We're going to use a hairdryer, heat gun, something to wall this area, because these 3 sensors, the microphone, the light sensor, and the little proximity sensor are stuck down with some adhesive that needs to be warmed up to the seal. We're going to leave that underneath the proximity sensor with the tweezers, lift very gently. Sometimes you might have to roll the light sensors there, and then lift up the microphone just there. Just help it along. All I'm doing right now is just very gently put pressure on it till it releases itself, and allow you to release this cable. Just be careful when you're doing that. I know this is a bit sort of a lot of people might get easy to talk about, other people like difficulty, but if this cable breaks, then you will lose face ID, and that's what I'm not doing. That's one side. And now we're going to use screen. So the screen I'm using are these extra screens. I will put a link for where you buy them. It's very much like these screens using every single day of the week. It includes a 12 warranty and a gently very screen. It comes with the adhesive seal to secure the screen to the frame, and that's what we're going to install first. To do this, you need to peel back the top layer of the film, and you put that off of it. Now stick down, line the top corner first, follow it down the left edge, make sure it's nice and tight to the frame. And if you do that, then the rest of it will follow around perfectly lined. Then you might just have to get something like plastic strip, just push it into these edges, and make sure this is down all the way around. Install that, we peel this little top layer of film to the side, and actually leave behind a fine layer of glue film. I really want to very minute, just plastic screen. Moving on to the screen now, we can remove the blue protective film from the back of the screen, and you'll notice that with these screens, they include the aluminium back cover that protects the back seal the back cover. Some screens that you buy online will not include this back cover if you don't need to remove all the screws on the outside and install the removal of the back cover. We have the back cover installed. I'm not going to go over here. No point. Anyway, moving on to the screen. We've got that sensor that needs to be installed now, so go ahead and line up power stop at the top, get the sensor, then the proximity sensor, and the microphone. If you've got that little bracket that sits on there, then we can now install it. But it's not happening. So I know for a fact that you've got perfect it's not ideal having it, but you can get it. You've got, and as such, that's what we're going to do. Install the top left drive screw first of all, then the rest of the cross screws go in the other 3 corners, get them in place. And then that's it, it's ready to install onto our frame. What people will point out, like, when we take a screen off, sometimes this can fall out of alignment with the camera. Let me wait a little while, it's out of line. It'll stop the screen going to install. See, it look like that, so just slide raise it, push down, move around, really down it. All you've got to do is just pull that way a little bit and push it back up, so it sits under the little catch, hold it, and you can see now the bounce up and down, moving free. Just look after that, honestly, it'll take a lot of time to install. It'll take a breaking new screen when you're installed. When you go to install it, make sure that the battery's still disconnected, just fold it out of the way, keep it out of the way so it doesn't get accidentally connected. Then operate the screen close first, I use the one here, and you have to tighten it in. Once it's over the pole, it'll take a pressure. Same for the one, even a little bit easier. And this one, you just have that sort of guide in, breathe them, until it's close, and you push it down, get that satisfying click, get it in place. You can use those to target the they can take a little bit of practice, but just be gentle with it, it's very easy to push. Don't forget to hold your mug back of the screen this time, and we're going to screen off it, and we're going to go with that metal shield on top here. Line it also, the screw also and secure down the 5 driving screws that we removed earlier on here. It's important to note all 5 of these are the same size driving screw, and they're the same as the one over the battery connected down as well, so don't worry, you can make a little bit. Just make sure the extra bracket. With all 5 of those screws in, we're going to now do it. If you keep something over, you have to go down and use the like that, lift up the flex cable, and then fold over the battery connector. Just be careful. You see how we're bending the cable now? I'm not folding it. You don't fold it. If you fold it, you break it. If you bend it, it's fine. It's quite flexible. Just don't fold it. Offer up a little bit of a electric shield, and then I'm going to get this one first. Get that in. Move that into place with the screwdriver. You got 10 screws, so screwdriver. So 6 screws to screwdriver, and then some flex cable. So that's your this might be a little bit faster. Anyway, you can just about squeeze that screw in by the cable, fold it out, and that's it. At this point, you want to make sure this screen turns on and shows the picture, and push it the way you want it to, which of course it's going to. Just test it, make sure you do. It'll be fine. If it's not, take it off, reconnect your connectors, and check before you see the screen down, it's probably a good idea. And just all do it, and no doubt, just get a bit of clean white background off, and go away, and just wipe down those bits of shield, just clean up, make it pretty, so just clean up a little bit, make it nice. And just make it a slightly more casual. Usually just a little bit of film all the way around, and just off, and you'll get it pulls up. If you find that the adhesive comes with it, you do that, then we'll just fold down to the backside. What we're going to do, if you find it comes with it, we're going to lift it up with one hand, and then use the flat end of the soil with your hand, and you're going to lift and push down at the same time. If you contact, look, it works with the adhesive. Just like that. You see that black adhesive stays in place all the way around. All we're going to do now is push down at the very top, you the clips in, just like that. Just be aware that there's a cable that you want to trap, pinch, snag, make sure that goes next. And finally, we're going to squeeze that side, and clip together. And I think I'll probably do 2 bar screws over first. That is, so we're just going to screw. If you've got any questions about repairing your screen, please feel free to get the device, and we'll get back to you as soon as we can. But like the video, and if you want to see it in the next video with a replacement gaming screen, I can see it's not too bad. It's been over. It's in fact, to replace the screen, we have to remove the cover and take everything from inside this one and put it into a new frame. So I'm going to start off, I've got this oil keypad, I've got a whole set of 85 centimeters, and this is 1 2 touch. So I'm going to stick this just onto the phone, and then I'm going to start lift up, and I'll start pushing down on the fingers, like that. I'm using my fingers as a hinge, and that's the sort of technique I'm using. I'm also going to add some alcohol along this side, and what we're going to see start happening is I start lifting. As I'm lifting, you see the alcohol getting absorbed, and it's lifting very slowly. I'm going to move this just close to the edge, just like this, sometimes lifting there. But I'm letting something do work with it. So now we've got that gap, we can use the piece of plastic card, and we can add some more alcohol, start lifting it as well as instead of the thick or plastic card we're using, we're just going to cut through the adhesive with the hand tool and the lift tool with the screw. We're going to work our way along one at a time, and I'm only inserting the pick, maybe 5 to no more than 8 millimeters, I'd say. And especially on camera, you must be very careful. And take your time. You see, I'm really difficult, this way so well. You can just lift it up and the alcohol will work and just like take it. But when you come to the adhesive, what you're going to do is just stop it on with that little tool and just carefully lift it away. You don't have to do this for years, so that's the long 2 millimeters in the and that's because when we lift it what you find is that it just sort of separates for you. So you just lift it up and you see it comes away, that's easy. Now what I'm going to do real quick, because as soon as we've got this, we want to protect these cameras, we don't want to get dust on them, we don't keep all the job nice and clean as well. So I've got these that should be used from another repair, we stick them over the cameras, just to protect them. Just peel off the rest of this easier, and take the back off. Sometimes I find this easy to take that, and obviously it's up to you whether you want to carry on using that adhesive for us, we'll go fresh and seal it. I'll take it to the desk with this back over, I'm just going to keep it on halfway, before I move the camera around it. So I'm going to peel off the rest of the adhesive, and then I'll show you the other adhesive behind, I'm just going to use the spindle tool to remove that. So you can see the like shiny film left behind, that's just adhesive. So we use a very simple spindle tool with the adhesive on the edge to remove all that leftover adhesive. Yeah, right, so I'll do this all the way around, also loaded, and I'll show you what looks like. So now that's all removed, like this is clean and ready for the new piece of adhesive to go on there, so we're ready for it. So yeah, let's get the rest of the shot first. So now that we've removed that back over clean, we are going to begin removing everything out of this phone, because the body board at the top here, these 4 cameras, the ear speaker, wireless audio, loudspeaker button, plus the support behind underneath it. I'm going to use a electric Phillips 2.0 screwdriver to remove all the screws that are holding down this top bit first. Generally all screws are the same size as the back, so you don't have to worry too much about the necessarily. But I'll point out, if you've got any different sizes, I'll put them out so just keep the ones that you go through. But as far as I know, they're all the same size as the buttons there. We'll just use electric screwdriver, it's just easier. And when you do this all day, every day, you stop feeling the screws all day. It sounds a bit sad, maybe a little bit, but you can feel it. If you've got one, use a little tray, pop tray, put it on the next ones, switch screws now, and that's it. This one is the size, put it by a slight amount, just keep separate, remember that that goes in there. Make all the screws are done, we're going to take this down here, so that's 4 ones, and then we can peel back this. Take this stuck onto the FM holders there, just peel it off, and then you can fold back. I'll leave it onto the support like that. The next screw back to the left, disconnect that, that's a power device, and then I'm going to disconnect these two at the top, so that's this one here, that's the ear speaker, so that pops up like that. Keep that still separately, then carry on, get this guy, disconnect that, disconnect the front camera, just keep my top on, once the camera's disconnected, so once the battery's disconnected, just keep the top on. Really disconnect that, realistically, just on there, and that one. Go for that, get the floor out. I'm just going to lift it a little bit, and leave it, just leave it sound like that. That means right, we're going to let these connected, when we get the bottom area out, everything just come out all in one, everything just come out all in one, and then just going to new housing all in one. I'll put that back now, and then we're going to the bottom area. And leave these screws also all the same sizes. I'll give it a minute, if you want to, it's not the end of the world, as long as you listen to what I'm saying, and use my parts, because then we're going to get one, and then the bottom area, I'm going to take that out, because I always get something over. I'll also pop this in for you as well. You can use the plastic screwdriver, I'm going to pop this plastic cord here, and here, and then that allows this whole thing to come out. So that means this guy, all in one, that's why we can stick it. Put it aside, so we stick it later, and then just 3 more screws, holding down support. I think that's slightly different size. I would keep them separate. Look at it, I think it's the same. But keep them separate just in case. You use the screwdriver to lift underneath that. Pop that out. Use the screwdriver again. Disconnect that cable there. Now I'm going to show you what how we pull all that one. Look at that. That's so easy. This is now ready to go into the new housing. Out this one. Now we're directing to the new keep that separate. Organize. Nice and easy. Removing the batteries on. Such has got a lot easier in the last year or so. Since introduced all systems. Yeah, once you've got that, you fold the back like that. Peel it off. Don't rip it off. Because then you can lift it. With this strength, it can go very easy. So that even heat, even alcohol, super easy. What you might like with copies on the don't worry about them. Just iron out with the screwdriver. Use some sort of flat plastic object. Just iron out, make sure they're go rid off. I'm not ready. This one just got the front camera. Sometimes you can buy these houses or the screen frame. They'll have the front camera attached to it. A little more expensive. But other times you need to remove it. I use another side the exact way and just put it in either side of the camera. So push down. Push. It sounds pretty gritty, but it's okay. Don't panic. Just go through everything stuff. Because once you got inside that, you can see what's not good now. We're going to get it. We can get that now. Just like that. Now instead of replacing resin, it's not 100% essential. It's not entirely necessary, but it's still okay. If you've got some UV resin to get out, then find what you use. There. That's what you've got. Put it down there. What we need to do now is get our new pot. I'll be responsible today. That's not 6:30. So we can do this one last night at 6:30. I would the pot and see the next morning. Ready. So like I said before, this is just a case of reversing the steps that we've taken apart. I'm just going to put it free. Because I've got new screen, I've got the plastic on my wood. Trust me, a little bit less of some crystals went there. So I've got that screen down, moving around all the kind of stuff, just make sure you leave that looking nice and fresh. But just make sure you put down on the edge of the battery, make sure that it's sat nice and flat, flush and good. And then yeah, remember how we took the board out and the support out all in one? Well, we just put the cable all in one, really easy. We'll have that cable from the battery that's still inside. Otherwise, it's really easy to hold it back together. Just in case now, make sure it's flat. Reconnecting any connectors as we're working through. So that's reconnecting. Reconnect. I'll wait for the battery to go in. Once that's all set in, flush and flat, make sure there's nothing sticking up. I can stick that screw for this guy, just hold it in place. And then there's there. And we'll go to the bottom. With each joint, we're doing once that's ready. So like, put it down, put it in, and put it down. And you've got 3 screws to get out, holding down support. 1, 2, and then 3. That's easy. Then I'm going to make sure that I'll promise you, in the past, I've always said I'm not connected to this. Make sure that you do it. Don't forget, they'll all sit on the speaker, all connected, and you stick it all back together. Leave it back together. You'll be touching out until you see that. Just aware. If you haven't done enough, then you'll do it. Maybe. Now, just these 6 screws down. It's all coming back together now, like this. Cycle good. Look like I'm down. So yeah, 6 screws holding that down. I'll put a bit of pressure on that now, just stick it back down, and working our way up. Before we put this in, look at the front camera. Then you see avoid there. I'll just take the plastic film off, drop the camera in place. Push it down, make sure it's secure. Remember the ear speaker. That's it there like that. Reconnect the connector. And finally, with the battery. That's connected. I can put it with the one charge coil. That's it, all back together. It's just 5 screws in. So I'll go through these screws. I'm going to politely remind you that if you might be back to this, then I strongly suggest that you subscribe to this channel. I've got a catalogue of, I think it's well over 200 pounds now. All simple stuff, basic stuff like this. Nothing too complicated. Please subscribe. Next time, you need to fix it. If you're later, you need to find it on the IDT channel. If you are repairing your extra for yourself, I will make sure it's to know how you broke it. This one, I already know, but no. I've no idea how the battery's done. Maybe I should full customer final case using it. I'll get the and subscribe and mark it exactly. Now, it's interesting because if you've got this end and you've got screw flat, it's a very simple way. So now you just have a quick little check of all the holes, make sure there's nothing empty, and you find where it belongs. Usually, it's one of these down here. But if you find that you've got no screws, anyway, back together, another problem. The easiest solution is to buy the genuine steel, right? They're expensive, it costs a lot of money, but you will not regret it. It comes with a little black screw, that's a separate bag. Or a full set of these types of screws. You might need it, you might drop one off and never find it again. Don't mind steel one. I don't know. But if you do, you know it's there. That's the last. These seals, sometimes you have to stick on the back, sometimes you have to stick on the back. But it looks like in this case, it's a simple one where you stick on the back. That's not a problem. So you don't get all the tabs to 3 put the line in the top corner, run it down the left edge, make sure everything sits nice and flat, tight edges, make sure that's sealed, carefully push it down and just follow it around. What I'm going to do now is just push down this steel, make sure it's nice and flush and perfectly flat and beautiful, and all the superlatives that you would use to seal, the best is to seal this out, and then it's not to bring So now, do you remember when we finished this? Now ready to go on. All we need to do is remove these little protectors. So just accumulate inside lenses and the outside and stick that across just like that. I'm just going to apply pressure all over these edges, make sure that it sticks and it's secure. And flip it over, turn it on, we still over, and it looks very good. Yeah, that's it. That's 24 ultra, front screen replacement, including frame. If I watch it, before I see it, best to just begin by getting primary screen. We want to do is gently inside to avoid engine screen further. you take the new screen, I'll send back the old screen, I'll get like a screen. It takes multiple screen. Usually it's like 20 you don't send the screen back, then you get fined essentially. You don't take it, but it all figures in there. It's like after doing what the hell they do with the screen. Super easy. That's very one little bit about these screens. They come with new screen, which maybe you can sometimes you can do but they come with new screen, you've got offset there. They don't stick down. But if you bear that in mind, if you're buying a single screen and you don't have a wall full of adhesives for phones, you might need to pull one of those as well. Moving on. This adhesive is not to be used. It looks like it's to be used already. So I'm going to just go ahead with a full A exact very carefully remove the old adhesive that comes a little bit. And play with one. I'm going to brush exactly. Very carefully. Work my way around. Scrape off all the adhesives that I found from the previous screen. I'll fast forward to it, I'll done, and then we'll show you how to do fine clean and how to install the new adhesive. So I'm just working around with the blade until this last bit here. Just a little side note, when you get to the top, there's a little bit of mesh for the speaker. Do not lose it. It's not good to lose it. No, I'm going to leave that to last. In the meantime, let's get some more asphalt alcohol along this edge, making a cardboard or cleaner white, but you want to get right in. You're able to screw it off deep into the edge and make sure it's nice and clean. So all four edges of the alcohol, just make sure it's nice and clean. You'll see why I can stick a little bit of mesh on. All that mesh back on, just there. Go with the straight back off. As it's doing it on these seals, it looks like this. Just take 4D seal. It's a little bit thicker, it won't fit properly. I'll use it. If you're stuck with it, just get around seal, it's different glass adhesive. Stick it down, make sure that it fits right into the edges. Catch it down, be a little awkward like this corner here. Just don't say right, quite thick adhesive. So just make sure it's right. What you can use as well is the flat edge of the soldier. You just push it down, make sure it sits nice and flat here. All the way around, and then you go to grab one corner and lift up the first of the blue sheet. You see the top, so I can go with it. If you push down, you just you know, that's a problem. Actually, all these come with it, so they're full of adhesive, I'm sure about it, but it's in line, it's still down, so I'm not going to waste it and liquid quickly. Take it off and just it's not called radiant on the previous video. But yeah, you can restrain these adhesives and they'll go away. Okay. Yeah, that's all I feel looking nice, so it's tight up there. Instead of focusing on the adhesive, you don't want to there. That's fair. So just go back to that little mesh, clean up, and then line up the top, once you've got the adhesive on, just sit quite nicely on top of it. That's ready for the new screen. So as we discussed earlier, the new screen comes straight to play very easily. Line up and connect the screen connector, line up and connect this one here. So we're going to be connected, we now connect and then we're going to reuse the shield. At this point, we've got options of how to use the screws that come with the screen, or we're going to use the screws that come out. Now the screw down, using the screws down. Now, just make sure that each and every screw goes back to where it belongs. Like I said when we're taking them out, there are different sizes of screw, and if you've got a long screw, where short screw belongs, you will have problems. It's called long screw attach, very originally, and it's something you want to avoid when you retain any phone, especially if it's one like the 15 Pro. Just on the bottom of this screw here. And then the last one goes up in the top corner. And because the blue film came off the adhesive earlier, this is ready to just close up. When you close it up, and then line up the top first, make sure it's exactly the vertical. Make sure that the top line up, then we can push down the edge, and then this edge, and we just make sure the bottom side, nice and flush, all flat, no big gaps. That's very easy to me. And then plug it in. Hang on, I'm not. I might just finish it on time first, so I'll put these two bottom screws in. Tighten up, go with this guy. And then I'm pretty sure this phone is on a version of iOS what will let you like this. To do that, I'm going to press and hold down volume at the same time. So press and hold it up, and then I'll plug it into a power delivery. Cable is 20 watt, plug with a 60 watt cable height. Once you get the plug up, I hold it for a few seconds, then I release these two. What we should get in a minute now is a diagnostic mode. Just over there, it's a little bit slower. So it's on 18.6.2. That may be out of date by the time you watch this video, but just make sure that your iOS software is up to date with the latest version of iOS. Agree to the terms and conditions, then choose finish repair. You'll then use configure things like works out what possibly replaced, and then eventually install the screen to replace, and back up to it. Now you can configure the box, which then leaves us with a fully calibrated screen, ready to go back to the customer. To restart, and I'll show you what looks like settings once the phone boots back up. As you can see, we have got a genuine display changed on this day. Thanks for watching, see you next video. I know this is complete now, but just a little side note for the end of the video. This is how these screens come. Look at the ripples and stuff. This is new from Apple 4 software installation. It's just a bit scabby, don't you think? If touch is still available on it, and then remove the two pentalobe screws from the bottom of the device. Once they're removed, take a single-sided razor blade and create a small incision between the plastic edge of the screen and the metal chassis. Insert it a couple of millimeters and then pry backwards. Create a logic gap, which is now big enough to fit a plastic guitar pick in there. With that inserted a couple of millimeters, we're just going to run it along the edge to separate the screen from the chassis. Take the razor blade out and continue around the bottom edge and the left-hand edge of the phone. Don't worry about the top edge because we can lift it up and wiggle it out to release the screen. Now we're into the device, we're going to place a heavy object behind it like a mug, and then to begin detaching the screen, remove the 3 screws holding down the shield for the battery cover, remove the shield with tweezers, and then using a plastic splodger, disconnect the battery flex here so that we can isolate power from the device. Moving up to the shield here, remove the 5 tri-wing screws. Once the screws are removed, remove the shield, and then using the plastic splodger again, remove the connector for the front sensor and ear speaker, followed by the 2 display connectors, one for the touch and the other for the LCD. That'll now free the screen away from the chassis, take advantage of being able to remove as much glue as possible, and then we'll move on to cleaning the chassis before we prepare the screen. The glue on the iPhone 11 is not too bad to remove, just take some fine tweezers and begin pulling it up, and remove as much of it as possible. Before taking a cleaning brush and some isopropyl alcohol, clean the edges of the chassis. We use these repair-specific brushes. If you don't have one, a clean toothbrush will do the same job. It's important to get the chassis as clean as possible at this point. Failure to do so will mean that the new dust and moisture-resistant seal won't sit very well onto the chassis. Most screens come with a new seal now, and this one's no exception, so we'll stick that into place and align the edges of it before securing it down with a plastic splodger. I'll now remove the first layer of the film. Some of the peels have different qualities. You might find that your screen comes with a blue seal, but they do exactly the same job. Now that the seal's applied, we can remove the ear speaker from the broken screen and begin transferring it onto our new display. There's one tri-wing screw in the top left corner of this ear speaker. Remove that, and then remove the 3 crosshead screws in each corner of the ear speaker. Once they're removed, take your tweezers and unfold the ear speaker from the flex cable. Now take your tweezers again and lift up this small bracket. And then, using a hairdryer or heat gun, warm up the area around the proximity sensor, microphone, and ambient light sensor to soften the adhesive underneath, so that we can get our tweezers underneath and carefully lift up the sensors without damaging them. It's really important to be careful when doing this, because if this flex cable gets damaged, it will render Face ID obsolete. Now that the flex cable is removed, we can take our new display, remove any peels on the back of the screen, then place down the flex cable the same way that you removed it. Once the flex is lined up, you want to take your proximity sensor and line that into place. Sometimes you might need the tweezers to give it a little nudge, followed by the ambient light sensor, and at that point the microphone should be secure. Reinsert that small metal bracket. This can be a bit tricky, but it looks like I've got it in one. And then fold over the ear speaker, align in the screw holes, then secure down the 3 crosshead screws and the single tri-wing screw in the top left. With those secured now, we can move on to transferring the TrueTone data using a TrueTone programmer. This is an optional step if you have a programming tool, but it isn't essential and it won't affect the way that the screen works. But basically what we do, we take the old screen, read the data that's stored in this chip down here, remove it, attach the new screen, and then write in the data. So this just acts as a sort of clipboard for transferring the data from the old screen to the new. Now I can move that out of the way. Now we can get the new screen and begin offering up the flex cables one by one. Once they're lined up, just apply a little bit of pressure. You'll feel it sort of click into place. It might be a little bit awkward if it's your first time doing this, but just be patient. Once they're secured, we're not going to put the shield on just yet. We're going to resecure the battery, and it's a good time to test that your new display works. Okay, it won't do any harm to turn it on like this. As long as the connectors are connected properly, we can just make sure that touch is good by making sure that it doesn't drop the slider when pressing power off. We can see that we've got touch all over, which means that we can seal this device up. So we start off by lining up the shield at the top and resecuring the 5 tri-wing screws. I'll just make another note here that all these screws are the same size, so it doesn't matter if you muddle them up slightly. As long as they're the same screws that came out of the logic board, you're not going to do any harm by putting them in a different location. Now that's secured. It's a little bit fiddlier to put the bracket for the battery back on, but if you lift up the cables for the screen, resecure the bottom 2 screws first, and then we'll peel back the screen cables a little bit so that we can get the top screw in. One other thing I've just noticed before I'm going to seal this up, and this can be quite common, is that this bracket here slips out of its housing. You just have to pull it back and make sure that it's sat under the little catch so that it doesn't lift up. If you don't do that, then the screen won't sit flush and also runs the risk of damaging the new display. Now this is ready, I'm going to peel back the peel for the dust and moisture resistant seal, and I'll just sort of close the phone now so that I can get the rest of the peel from this side. Then to make sure that the screen goes back perfectly into place, we're going to get the top of the screen first, make sure that it clips in at the top, nice and flush with the chassis, and then apply pressure in that corner there, followed by spinning it around, apply pressure there, and give it a squeeze on the bottom to make sure that it sits nice and flush. We can see we've got a corner that's struggling to go in there. I think it's got a little dint in the top. If that ever happens, you can take your razor blade again and just give it a little nudge to make sure that it sits in perfectly. We'll turn the device on again, and whilst that's booting up, we'll just make sure that we resecure the 2 pentalobe screws into the bottom of the phone. Thank you for watching this video. I hope that it's been helpful. In this video, I'm going to show you how to replace the front screen on the iPhone 11. If you haven't already, power down the device and take a pentalobe screwdriver and remove the 2 screws at the bottom of the phone, either side of the lightning connector. These never stick to the magnetic screwdriver, so you might have to pull them out individually. Next, we're going to take a single-sided razor blade and we're going to create an incision into the edge of the frame at the very edge of the screen, but inside the frame of the phone. So on this one, it's the red bit. Can you see where we've inserted it? Once we've inserted it and it's flat, we're just going to pop it up like that. We don't have to use any heat or anything to get this off. It will come away quite easily. And you're going to pull it back like that, just enough so you can make a bigger gap in the bottom of the screen, large enough now to get the plastic guitar pick into. And we're just going to insert it into that corner and then begin running it down and along this first edge. Run it all the way along that right-hand edge first of all, then bring it back down on itself along the bottom, and then along this left-hand edge of the screen. I'm just going to keep running it around like that until the bottom of the screen is detached like that. We'll leave the top, don't worry about that just yet, because what we're going to do, we're going to lift it up from the bottom, wiggle it side to side like that, and it sort of snaps out from the top, and then you can open up the screen just like that. This one's had the battery replaced before, so the screen's already been opened, but I don't think that you'll have too much difficulty removing that screen if you follow those instructions. To keep the screen from falling over, use a weighted object like a mug to lean that screen against just like that, so now you've got 2 hands free to work inside the phone. To detach the screen from the phone, first of all, we need to disconnect power, and that comes in the form of a battery, so we need to remove the 3 screws that are hiding underneath the screen cable, so we've got this like L-shaped bracket, remove the 3 tri-wing screws that are holding that down, store those safely for reinstallation later, then take some tweezers, lift up that L-shaped bracket, pull it out of the way, and then use a plastic prying tool to disconnect this flex cable here, which is for the battery. Just get it disconnected and out of the way. Moving along now, we can remove this screw and the rest of the screws for this sort of rectangular shaped shield, what holds down the connectors for the screen, and then use the tweezers to lift up the shield again. And then same as we did with the battery, except we're going to use it to lift out this connector here, and then finally this connector just here. With those all disconnected, we can now lift up the screen and put it to one side. We'll carry on working on the frame while we've got it open, and what you'll find is that there's some glue left behind from the previous dust and moisture resistant seal, and we need to get it out of the way because we're going to replace that seal. So just get some tweezers, pick it up and pull it off like that, peel it out of the way, and then just check all the way around the 4 edges to make sure that it's all been removed. There's some more just here, look. Let's get that out of the way, and then I think that's all of the adhesive removed. On these edges is an accumulation of gunk that gets in between the screen and the frame of the phone. To remove that, we're going to add a little bit of isopropyl alcohol in one of these little squeezy bottles, and just run a bead of it down the edge. Then using one of these little horsehair brushes. An old toothbrush will do the same thing as well. We're just going to clean up all the dust and gunk that builds up inside there. Give it a good scrub, you're not going to hurt anything. Not on these 3 edges, what I've done so far anyway. But when you get to the top, just be aware that obviously there's a front camera here, so you don't want to go crazy brushing that with a dirty brush, so just beware. I usually just go one-sided like that, just one direction, just so that I avoid causing any damage to the front camera or the Face ID camera. So that's clean now, and I'll put that to one side, and we'll get the old screen, which is this guy just here. And what we need to do, to make sure that Face ID still works after the repair, we need to move this cable flex and ear speaker from this screen onto the new one. So to do that, we have to remove the single tri-wing screw from just here, and then the rest of them are the crosshead top screws, so go ahead and remove all of those. We can now unfold this ear speaker like that. And then we've got a problem here. On an original screen, there'll be a small little shield there. You just need to get the tweezers. Imagine that there's a shield there, pick it up with the tweezers like that, and then it'll reveal what looks like this. But this screen has actually been replaced before, which means that somebody hasn't put that little shield back. I'll try and find one, replace it, but they are in short supply because we find them a lot. We're going to use a hairdryer, heat gun, something to warm up this area, because these 3 sensors, the microphone, the ambient light sensor, and the other one, proximity sensor, are stuck down with some adhesive that needs to be warmed up to loosen it up. So we're going to get underneath there, underneath the proximity sensor with the tweezers, and just lift very gently. Sometimes you might have to grab hold of the ambient light sensor just there, and then lift up the microphone just there, just to help it along. And all I'm doing when I'm getting that is just sort of very gently putting pressure on it to let it release itself, and that'll allow you to release this cable. Just be careful when you're doing that. I know this is a bit of a sort of crux point for a lot of people. Might get it off easy and think, what the hell is this guy talking about? Other people will have difficulty, but if this cable breaks, then you will lose Face ID, and that's what goes wrong for a lot of people when they're doing this repair. Put that to one side, and now we're going to get the new screen. So the screens that we're using are these XO7 screens. I will put a link for where you can buy them. It's direct from our website, and these are the screens that we use in store every single day of the week. They include a 12-month warranty and are generally a very, very good screen. It comes with the adhesive seal to secure the screen to the frame, and that's what we're going to install first. To do this, you need to peel back the top layer of the film, and you can chuck that part of the bin. Now sticks down, lining up the top left corner first, follow it down this left-hand edge, make sure it's nice and tight to the edge of the frame, and if you do that, then the rest of it will follow around perfectly aligned. And then you might just have to get something like the plastic spudder to just push it into these edges
and make sure that it's stuck down all the way around. Installed now, we can peel off this other top layer of film from the other side, and that's going to leave behind a final layer of blue film that I always leave on until the very last minute when we're just about to stick the screen back down. Moving on to the screen now, we can remove the blue protective film from the back of the screen, and you'll notice that with these screens, they include the aluminium back cover that protects the back of the LCD and the backlight. Some screens that you buy online will not include this back cover. If they don't, you need to remove all the tri-wing screws around the outside and install and move over the back cover. We have the luxury of having the back plate already installed. I'm not going to go through that with you, there's no point. Anyway, moving on to the screen. We've just got that sensor that needs to be installed now, so go ahead and line up. I always start with the top, get the ambient light sensor in, then the proximity sensor and the microphone. If you've got that little metal bracket that sits on there, then obviously now is the time to install it. But I just don't have any. So I know for a fact that these operate perfectly fine without. It's not ideal not having it, but you can only piss with the cock you've got. And as such, that's how it's going to be with this one. Install the top left tri-wing screw first of all, then the rest of the crosshead screws go in the other three corners, get them in place. And then that's it, it's ready to install onto our frame or foam. One thing I will point out, right, the way that we take the screens off, sometimes this can fall out of alignment, the front camera. Let me show you what it'll look like if it's out of line, because it'll stop the screen being able to be installed. You see, it'll look like that, so it's just sat slightly raised and it won't push down or move around freely when you push down on it. All you've got to do is just pull it that way a little bit and then push it back up so that it sits under the little catch that holds it. And you can see now that it's bouncing up and down and moving free. Just look out for that, honestly, it'll save you a lot of problems, or it'll save you from breaking the new screen that you're putting on there when you go to install it. When you do go to install it, make sure that the battery's still disconnected. It's best to just fold it out of the way to keep it out of the way so it doesn't get accidentally connected. Then offer up the screen cables first. I usually go for the one closest here, and we're going to line it up and use our thumb to guide it in. Once it's over the hole, it'll click into place with a little bit of pressure. Same for the other one, that usually lines up a bit easier. And then for this one, you just got to like sort of guide it in with your thumb until it's close, and then you can push it down to get that satisfying click and get it into place. If you've never used those type of connectors before, they can take a little bit of practice, but just be gentle with it because it's very easy to crush them. Don't forget to put your mug at the back of the screen this time, and we can lean the screen up to it, and then we're going to go with that metal shield on the top here, line that up so that the screw holes are all visible, and then secure down the 5 tri-wing screws that we removed earlier on in the video. It's important to note that all 5 of these are the same size tri-wing screw, and they are the same as the one we'll go for the battery connector down at the bottom as well, so don't worry if you mix them up a little bit. Just make sure that they get screwed back in. With all 5 of those screwed in, what we're going to do now is a bit of a iffy sort of maneuver, but you have to do it on the iPhone 11. You just have to get underneath it with your thumb like that, lift up the flex cable, and then fold over the battery connector. Just be careful. You see how we're bending the cable now? I'm not folding it. You don't want to fold it. If you fold it, you'll break it. If you bend it, it's fine. It's quite flexible. Just don't fold it. Offer up that little bit of a L-shaped shield, and then I'm going to get this one in first. Get that in. Move that into place with the screwdriver. You need about 10 hands for this because you need someone to hold the screwdriver, someone to stick screws to the screwdriver, and then someone to hold that flex cable. So unless you're an octopus, this might be a little bit of a faff at this point. Anyway, you can just about squeeze that screw in by the cable without folding it, like I've just had a rant about, and that's it. At this point, you want to make sure that this screen turns on and shows a picture and functions the way that you want it to, which, of course, it's going to. Just test it, make sure that you do. It'll be fine. If it's not, take it off, reconnect your connectors, and check it again. Before you seal the screen down, it's probably a good idea. I mean, this one will mucky already, and no doubt I've got some fingerprints on it as well. Just get a bit of clean room white microfiber cloth and a bit of alcohol in it, and just wipe down those bits of metal shield. Just clean it up, make it look pretty. You don't know who's going to be in the phone next, who's going to be judging you. So just clean it up a little bit, make it look nice. And it makes it a slightly more professional job, doesn't it? Use tweezers to lift up this final layer of blue film all the way around until it snaps off, and you have to grab the other bit of pull tab. If you find that the adhesive comes with you when you do that, let me show you a little trick that I use. I'm just going to fold it down because we need to get to this back side. And what we're going to do, if you find it comes with it, we're going to lift it up with one hand, but then use the flat end of the spudger with your other hand, and you're going to lift and push down at the same time, if that makes sense. It's a confusing concept, but it works for this adhesive. Just like that. So you see that black bit of adhesive has stayed in place all the way around. All we're going to do now is push down at the very top. You need to make sure that the clips it in, just like that. Just be aware that there's a flex cable there that we don't want to trap, pinch, snag. Just make sure that that goes in next. And then finally, we can squeeze that side until it clips together. And I think, apart from these 2 bottom screws that we removed first, that is the job complete. So we'll just get these 2 screws in. Oops. If you've got any questions about repairing your screen or replacing your screen, don't forget to ask them in the comments and I will get back to you as soon as I can. But that is job done. Thank you for watching as always, and see you in the next video. In this video, I'm going to be repairing this Samsung S24 Ultra with a replacement genuine screen. As you can see, this one's been battered. It's been run over in actual fact, but luckily the back cover is intact. To replace the screen on this, we have to remove the back cover and then take everything from inside this phone and put it into essentially a new frame. So I'm going to start off. I've had this already on the heat mat. I've got my hot plate set to 85 degrees centigrade, and this is warm to the touch. So I'm going to stick this suction cup on the bottom third of the phone. And then I'm going to lift up, and I'm sort of pushing down on this finger, so I'm going like that. Like I'm using my fingers as a hinge, and that's the sort of technique that I'm using. I'm also going to add some isopropyl alcohol along this bottom edge, and what we're going to see start happening is it's going to start lifting. As I'm lifting up, you can see the alcohol's getting absorbed, and it's lifting very slowly. What I'm going to move this just a smidge closer to that edge. I just find that it sometimes lifts a bit better. But I'm letting the suction cup do the work, really. So now that we've got that gap, we can use the piece of plastic card, and we're just going to add some more alcohol, start lifting it as well as inserting the pick or the plastic card, whatever you're using, and we're just going to sort of cut through the adhesive with the prying tool and then lifting up with the suction cup still. We're going to work our way along one edge at a time, and I'm only inserting the pick maybe 5 to no more than 8 millimeters, let's say. And then especially around the cameras, you do want to be very careful. And just take your time. You can see, I mean, realistically, look, because it's come away so well, you can just lift it up and let the alcohol do the work and just let gravity take it. But as soon as you come across any resistance with it, what you want to be doing is just helping it along with that little thin tool, and we're just carefully lifting it away. You only have to do those 3 edges, so that's the 2 long edges and the bottom edge, and that's because when we get to this top edge, what you'll find is that it just sort of separates for you. So you just lift it up and you can see it just comes away, nice and easy. Now what I'm going to do real quick, because as soon as we've got in this, we want to protect these camera lenses. We don't want to get dust on them. We just want to keep the whole job nice and clean as we work. So I've just got these are just reused from another repair. We'll just stick them over the cameras just to protect them. And that means I can just peel off the rest of this adhesive here and take the back cover off. Sometimes you'll find that this adhesive stays intact, and obviously it's totally up to you whether you want to carry on using that and reuse it, but for us, we're going to put a fresh, genuine seal on it, and I'll take this over to the desk. With this back cover though, I'm just going to keep it on the hot plate before I move all the camera and everything. So I'm going to peel off the rest of this adhesive, and then what I'll show you, there'll be a little bit of adhesive left behind, and I'm just going to use the spindle tool to remove that. So you can see the like shiny film what's left behind, that's just adhesive. So we just use a very simple spindle tool with the heat. We're just going to run it along that edge to remove all that leftover adhesive residue. Get it out of the way. So I'll just run this all the way around, all four edges, and I'll show you what it looks like after. So now that's all removed, like this is clean and ready for the new piece of adhesive to go on there as soon as we're ready for it. So yeah, let's get the rest of the phone swapped out first. So now that we've removed that back cover, we've cleaned it up, we are going to begin removing everything out of this phone, which includes the logic board at the top here, these 4 cameras, the ear speaker, wireless charging coil, loudspeaker at the bottom, plus the subboard will hide underneath it. I'm going to use a electric Phillips 00 screwdriver to remove all the screws that are holding down this top bit first. Generally all the screws are the same size on this back cover, so we don't have to worry too much about like, muddling up necessarily. But I will point out, if we've got any of the different sizes, I'll point them out, so just keep things organised as you're going through. But as far as I know, the only one that's a different size is the black one just there. I would recommend using an electric screwdriver like this. I don't know, it's just easier. And when you do this all day, every day, you start feeling it in your hands if you're turning screws all day. It sounds a bit sad and a bit, maybe a little pathetic, but you can feel it. If you've got one, use a little tray, parts tray. I've got these little magnetic ones. Store your screws in them. And then, like I said, this one is a different size, just by a slight amount. Just keep it separate. And remember that goes in there. Don't forget. Because all those screws are undone, we're going to disconnect this guy here. So that's for the wireless charging coil. And then we can peel back this. It is stuck onto the S Pen holder just there. So just peel it off. And then you can just leave it folded back. I'll leave it stuck onto the support. Just fold it back like that. And then next, because we've got access to the battery now, we can disconnect that. That's going to isolate power from the device. And then I'm going to disconnect these two at the top. So that's this one here. That's for the ear speaker. So that pops out just like that. Keep that stored separately. Then we'll carry on, get this guy, disconnect that, we'll disconnect the front camera. I'm just working like top to bottom. Once the camera's disconnected, once the battery's disconnected, I'm just working top to bottom. We don't need to disconnect any of them, realistically. Just that one there, and that one. Because after that, you can lift the board out. And I'm just going to lift it a little bit, and leave it. I'm just going to leave it set out like that. So that means, right, because we left these connected, when we take this bottom area out, everything's just going to come out all in one. Everything's just going to come out all in one like that, and then it just goes into the new housing all in one. I'll fold that back now, and then we'll go down to the bottom area. And I believe these screws are also all the same sizes. I'll give you a tip in a minute. If you lose one or two, it's not the end of the world, as long as you listen to what I'm saying and use the right parts, because you'll end up with a few extra screws on there. While I'm in this bottom area, I'm just going to take that S Pen out, because I always forget to move it over. And I'll also pop the SIM tray out as well. You can use the plastic spudger. I'm just going to pop this like plastic cover off here and here, and then that allows this full thing to come out now. So that means this guy, all in one. That's why we didn't unstick it. Just put it to one side, store it safely for later, and then we've just got 3 more screws holding down the subboard. I think they're slightly different size. So I always keep them separate. Looking at them, actually, I think they're the same, but keep them separate just in case. You can use the spudger to lift underneath that. Pop that out. Use your spudger again to disconnect that cable just there. Now let me show you what I was talking about earlier, how we can pull it all out as one. Look at that. That's so easy. This is now ready to go into the new housing. So we took it out of this one and then we put it directly into the new one. So keep that separate, organised, nice and easy. Removing the batteries on Samsungs have got a lot easier in the last year or so since they've introduced this pull tab system. But yeah, once you've got that, you fold that back like that, peel it off, don't rip it off, because then you can just lift up. With a bit of strength, it comes off very, very easy, just like that. Didn't use any heat, didn't use any alcohol, just comes off super easy. What you might be left with is a couple of creases on the back of the battery. Don't worry about them. Just iron them out with your plastic spudger, or use some kind of flat plastic object just to iron them out and make sure that they're got rid of. I'm not quite ready with this one. We just got that front camera. Sometimes you can buy these housings or the screens with frame, and it'll have the front camera attached to it. They're a little bit more expensive, but then other times you need to remove it. I'll just use a number 17 X-Acto blade, and I just push it in either side of the camera. So I'm going to push down, push, 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 push. And it sounds pretty gritty and horrible, but it's okay. Don't panic. It's just cutting through that resiny stuff, because once you've got either side of that, you can see it's loosening up good and proper now. Remember that? Yeah, that's it. We can get that out now, just like that. Now, in terms of replacing that resin, it's not 100% essential. It's not an entire necessity, but it's totally up to you. If you've got some UV resin kicking about at home, then by all means, you use it. There. That's everything gone, everything out of there. What we need to do now is get our new part. We bought this from Mobile Centrics, our video sponsor for today. I ordered it last night at 6:30. Somebody came in with this phone last night at 6:30. I ordered the part, and it's here the next morning, ready. So like I said before, this is just a case of reversing the steps that we have taken it apart, and we're just going to put it into this new frame, because it's got the new screen attached to it. Look, leave that plastic film on while you're working. Trust me, a little bit of glass and some crystals went there. So if I put that screen down there, move it around a little bit, it's going to scratch up. So make sure you leave that looking nice, looking fresh. So just make sure that you push down on the edge of the battery, make sure that it's sat nice and flat and flush and good. And then, yeah, remember how we took the board out and the subboard out all in one? Well, we can just drop it back in all in one. It's really easy. Watch out for flex cables from the battery and this little display cable on the side. But otherwise, it's really, really simple how it all goes back together. It's just a case of making sure it's sat flat, reconnecting any connectors as we're working through. So the S Pen is reconnecting. Reconnect. I'll wait for the battery until the very end. But once that's all sat in flush and flat, make sure that there's nothing sticking out. I can stick that screw for this guy, just hold everything in place. I know that one goes there. And then we'll move on to the bottom. With these charging ports, what you want to do, you want to sort of thread it in. So like point it down, point it in, and then just push it down. And then you've got those 3 screws that we took out, holding down the subboard. 1, 2, and number 3. Nice and easy. Then I'm going to make sure that I reconnect this. I promise you, in the past, I have put one of these together and not connected this. Make sure that you do it. Don't forget, because it will just sit under the speaker, unconnected, and then you'll stick it all back together, and you've got no picture. And you'll be scratching your head until you see that. So just beware. If I'm dumb enough, then you're dumb enough. Maybe. Now, just these 6 or 7 screws down the bottom. It's all coming back together now, isn't it? Everything's starting to look good. It looks like a phone again almost. So yeah, 6 screws holding that down. I'll put a bit of pressure on that bit now just to stick that back down, and then we're working our way up. Before we put this in, look, we've got the front camera that needs to be installed, so we've got a void there. I'm just going to take this plastic film off, drop the camera in place, push that down, make sure it's secure. And we've got the ear speaker, that sits there like that. Reconnect to the connector, and then finally we've got the battery. That just needs connecting, and we can cover it up with the wireless charging coil. And that's it, all this is back together. It's just a pile of screws again. So I'm going to work through these screws. I'm going to politely remind you that if you like repair content just like this, then I strongly suggest that you subscribe to this channel. I built up a catalogue of, I think there's well over 200 repairs on here now. All simple stuff, basic stuff just like this. Nothing too complicated. And if you subscribe, then next time you need something fixing, something phone related, you can easily find it on the i.uk channel. If you are repairing your S24 Ultra yourself, I would be very curious to know how you broke it. This one, I already know, got run over. I've got no idea how the back didn't smash. Maybe I should call the customer and find out what case they're using, because it's obviously a good one. Don't forget to put the S-Pen back in, and the SIM tray, and then my little tray's empty. Now, here's where it's interesting, because if you've got to this end and you've got some screws left, there's a very simple way of sorting that. You just need to have a quick visual check of all the holes, make sure that there's nothing empty, and you'll find where it belongs. Usually, it's one of these ones down here. However, if you find that you've not got enough screws and you put it back together, then you've got another problem. The easiest solution for this is to buy the genuine seals, right? They're expensive, they cost a lot of money, but you will not regret it. Look, it comes with a little black screw, that's in a separate bag. Or a full set of these Samsung screws, which you might need it. You might drop one on the carpet and never find it again. The dog might steal one. I don't know. But if you do, you know that it's there. That's all I'm saying. For these seals, sometimes you have to stick them on the back, sometimes you have to stick them on the back cover. And it looks like, in this case, it's a simple one where we just stick it on the back. I apologise. That's not the right one. Let me get the right one. I don't know how that's got modelled up. So they've got little tabs that you can hold on to. For me personally, I prefer to line up in the top corner, run it down the left-hand edge, making sure everything sits nice and flat, tight to the edges. It makes a much better seal if it's tight to the edge. Carefully push it down and just follow it around. What I'm going to do now is just push down this adhesive seal, make sure that it's set nice and flush and perfect and flat and beautiful and all the superlatives that you would use to describe a seal. The bestest seal list ever. And then you can peel it off. The top's the green film, that is, not the whole seal. So now, do you remember when we cleaned this up good and proper? That's now ready. It can go on. All that we need to do is remove these little protective covers. Just blow off any dust that might have accumulated inside the lenses and on the outside, and then stick that back cover on just like that. And we're just going to apply pressure all over these edges, make sure that it sticks and is secure. And we can flip it over, turn it on. Obviously it looks terrible, but underneath it looks very good. But yeah, that's it. S24 Ultra front screen replacement, including the frame. Thank you for watching, and see you in the next video.
Pro Max step by step. Before opening the device, it's best to apply a bit of heat to soften the adhesive. Begin by carefully prying around the screen. You'll want to do this gently and slowly to avoid damaging the screen further. With the screen lifted, let's move on to the internals. Start by removing the lower bracket on the mainboard, which holds the battery connector in place. This is held down by 3 tri-wing screws. Once the bottom bracket is off, disconnect the battery to prevent any short circuiting. After that, gently disconnect the LCD from the mainboard. The next step is removing the proximity sensor. You'll see a bracket holding it in place. Remove the 4 screws and disconnect the connector. Once the screen is free, you will see the proximity sensor on the back of the old screen secured by 3 screws. Remove those screws. And then apply some heat or isopropyl alcohol to soften the adhesive. Gently remove the proximity sensor from the old screen. And transfer it to the new one, and replace the bracket. Now it's time to reassemble everything. Start by reconnecting the proximity sensor and LCD connector, followed by the battery. Once everything is connected and secure, power on your device to make sure everything is working properly before putting the final screws in. Make sure to add new adhesive tape or glue to ensure the screen stays securely in place. Finally, replace the bottom 2 pentalobe screws, and your iPhone 13 Pro Max screen replacement is complete.
Some tweezers to remove the SIM tray. Removing the SIM tray creates a weak spot in the chassis. You can now take a plastic opening pick and insert it between the edge of the screen and the plastic chassis and the plastic cover, and begin unclipping that back cover. It can be a little bit awkward around the corners. Don't be scared to use a bit of force to do it. But when you get to these buttons, just be careful because there will be a flex cable under there, so you just want to insert a little bit there. Finally, we'll go around to the top corner, and I should release it. That's the little cable that I'm talking about there. To avoid damaging it, I'll get it from the left-hand side, just like that. Now that we're into the device, the 10 crosshead screws that need removing. Go ahead and use a small screwdriver to remove those. If you're using a magnetic screwdriver like me, you might find that some of them don't always come out all the way. Or just use tweezers to pull them out the rest of the way. I've normally used a magnetic nut, but this back cover makes a perfect place to store the screws whilst we're disassembling the device. Next, we're going to take some tweezers, and I'm going to start in this top corner here to lift this plastic shield up, which will reveal the logic board for the phone. Now that we've got access to the motherboard, I'm going to use a plastic sputter to disconnect the battery, as well as these 2 flex cables here. And finally, the flex cable for the lock button on the left-hand edge. This means that we can now release the motherboard from the chassis. Notice how I've left this coaxial cable connected. I always do that. It just makes it a lot easier to put back together when we install it into the new screen. Moving down to the bottom of the phone now, there's another 8 crosshead screws that's holding down the loudspeaker at the bottom, as well as the daughter board for the charging port. Remove all 8 screws and store them safely for later. To remove this cover, take some tweezers and insert it just a little bit into there and begin prying upwards. I've just realised that I've missed out 1 screw, so that's not going to go anywhere. Anyway, once you've got all the screws removed, you should be able to lift that up fairly easily, just like that. Use your spudger again to disconnect this flex cable here. That should connect to the back of the screen, and then release the coaxial cable and pry underneath this subboard to release it. That's released the daughter board and the motherboard now. We can store that safely for later. Now we're going to begin removing the battery. And the way that these usually work, this is the first time I've seen these on a Samsung phone, but they have a similar tab system on the Huawei's. Remove these tabs first, and then lift this tab up here to pull out the battery. By just pulling up on that tab there, releasing the battery. I'll sort of snap it off there, look, release it, and that does release the battery. Moving on now, I'm going to get our new part, and this is the A14 4G version. There is another screen for the 5G version, so make sure that if you do this, you've got the right part. This is the SM-A145. I can see that I need to transfer over the ear speaker onto the chassis, and also the vibration motor needs moving over as well. The vibration motor comes out pretty easy with some tweezers, just get it under that spot there. Same for the ear speaker, there's a little notch down the bottom here, get the tweezers underneath it, and carefully pry upwards. Just like that to release it. Now make sure when we're putting this back in, that the pins there, what's sticking out higher, go on the bottom, the same way that it came out. So directly transferring this from one part to the other. Same for the vibration motor down the bottom here. Peel back the adhesive for the battery, and then secure that into place just there.
Yeah, pretty much, this is it.
Now we're just going to reverse the steps that we used to disassemble the device to reassemble the device. Starting off with the daughter board down there, let's make sure that this coaxial cable goes where it belongs. There's a small groove for it there, and you can see the creases in the cable where it goes around the corner there. Use a plastic sputter to push it down into the groove that it sits in, and make sure that it sits nice and flat into it. Now reconnect the flex cable just here, and install the loudspeaker and plastic cover, followed by the 8 crosshead screws that secure it down. Remember, if you like this sort of repair content, please subscribe for more just like it. And if you're attempting this repair yourself, let me know how you went on in the comments below. If there was anything I did wrong, I'm sure you'd point it out straight away to me. Now we've got those 8 screws in, we're going to move up to the top of the device and realign the motherboard into the chassis. It's fairly self-explanatory, just make sure that it's sat flat and not sat on top of any screw holes. Then reconnect these 2 flex cables for the support in the screen, followed by the little flex cable here for the power button. And finally, the battery connector. You can now go ahead with the plastic cover that protects the motherboard and cameras, and resecure the 10 crosshead screws that hold it down. With those 10 screws re-secured, I can just see next to the camera here that the plastic cover's not sat quite right, and there's a little tab for it what's stuck out there. Whenever I come across these, I just get the back end of the tweezers and just give it a nice push down to make sure that it's secure. The final thing to do is to re-secure this back cover. I'm just going to fold it over, and I always find the best practice here is to make sure that the button's attached first, and begin applying pressure all the way around the device to make sure that it's sat securely into place. There's of course this plastic film on there,